Everyone says that critical thinking is most important skill that you need to learn. Today, for the first time, I will be explaining what do we mean by critical thinking, what is its framework, what are its practical implications. Extremely important lectures for the students, for kids, for professionals. If you find it useful, please share it with others. First of all, critical thinking is the ability to analyze the information objectively, evaluate arguments, and make reasoned judgment. So it has mainly three steps, we can say. The first thing is that it's your ability to analyze the information objectively, then evaluate the arguments, the second part, and make reasoned judgments. So this is called critical thinking. Any person who can do all these three things is basically a critical thinker. Why critical thinking is important? It improves our decision making, generally in life, in business, in different situations. It enhances our problem solving skills. It reduces biases as you can evaluate the information objectively and then make decisions. Fourth, it supports academic and professional success. This is the reason that critical thinking is extremely important. Here, I will be explaining five components of critical thinking. First is that you must be able to analyze. You must conduct the analysis. You are choosing stocks, you are starting a business, you are starting a degree, you are handling a situation, you are handling a conflict. You must be able to do its analysis. Analysis, valuation, inference, interpretation, reflection. So analysis everyone can understand, evaluation everyone can understand. Inference means you need to predict. In statistics, we say that there's two types of the statistics: descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. What we do with the existing knowledge, we predict about the future, we predict next thing, we connect the dots. So this is the ability that is the core component of critical thinking. And then obviously interpretation in the right way with the communication skills, and then reflection on it. So these are core components of critical thinking. Critical thinking versus creative thinking. So these two are different things. The critical thinking is the logical evaluation of the things, while creative thinking is ideas generation. Steps in critical thinking process. This is the extremely important thing. If you have not come across it before, ensure that you are doing things through this process. First of all, you need to identify the problem. Secondly, you need to gather the information, analyze the evidence, draw the conclusion, and review the outcome. This is the complete process with which you need to collect. So if somebody comes to you and immediately you take the decision after listening him, it means that you are not a critical thinking. You need to identify the problem. So before working on anything in the organization, you need to identify, is it really a problem or it's just a symptom? And I will explain that. What do we mean by symptom? What do we mean by real problem? With a simple example, that for example, if a kid is having fever, so the fever, one can say that, oh, kid has the fever, so there's a problem. The problem is not that the kid has a fever, it's a symptom. There is something wrong in the kid. Maybe he's not living in the right environment. Maybe there is some virus, maybe some bacterial attack. So it's up to the doctor. If he's a critical thinker, he will identify the cause and solve the root cause. So these are the steps that you need to identify the problem, gather the information, analyze the evidence, draw conclusion. So whenever we look into the critical thinking in the education sector, in the learning professionalism, the core thing is Bloom's taxonomy. So it helps us to understand the things, comprehend the things, analyze the things, create something on higher order thinking. So first thing that we need to understand, that our level one of the critical thinking starts with the remembering. Like the small kids, when you teach them papa, mama, they remember. This is called the remembering. You just remember critical thinking. You remember the things you are studying over here, listening with me in the classes. So this is called remembering. The level two is understanding. So maybe in the first stage you were just remembering few words, but in second stage you are understanding what do they mean. What does papa mean? What does mama mean? What does rom mean? If you are in the computer language, if you are watching my those videos. The third thing is Advanced level of understanding, when you say applying, it means that you can now use the information, the situation, and answer the question to solve the problems. This is called applying. And the fourth level is analyzing, when you say take part the information, show relationship, cause the connection. This is analyzing. And fifth level is evaluating, so you can justify or stand, or you have a certain perspective in certain field, you know it so much. When we take the experts on the interview panel and the TV, we ask them what do you think, it means that they are expert and they can have a judgment, they can have a position. And lastly, level 6 means that someone who produces something. When we talk about politics, it means the people who become president, who make bigger policies. When we talk about the company, we mean in creating stage, the people who create the businesses. So this is the Bloom's taxonomy. So we start with the remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and at the end of the day, creating. This is the Bloom's taxonomy. So we are humans. Obviously, one can manipulate our brain, one can manipulate our thoughts through common cognitive biases. Common cognitive biases, for example, confirmation bias. If you have an idea and somebody tells you the same way, then you say, oh, this was in my mind, it must be in this way. If you have some negative thoughts about someone, if someone else comes and gives a negative information to you, your confirmation bias says, okay, this happened. The second thing is anchoring bias. So it happens mostly when you read thing, when you have a certain thing which develops your narrative, you see someone doing it. This also leads to the cognitive biases. Same goes for the availability bias. If somebody is available, so definitely based on that, your cognitive system also looks into the biases. Coming to the next, what are the critical thinking tools? Ultimately, our objective is to not only understand critical thinking but develop it. The thing important is SWOT analysis. You need to see your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Normally, these strengths are from the inside, weaknesses are from inside, opportunities are outside, threats are outside. So you need to generate different situations through the SWOT analysis. And this is root cause analysis, that you identify the root. How we can identify? We can ask 5W strategy we can use. It means if something happens, you can ask first why it happened. For example, if some site went down in some network area, you can ask why it went down. They will say there is a generator problem. So the second question will be, why is there is a generator problem? They will say, oh, we do not have any generator fixer. Why don't do not have any generator fixer? Because the generator is a new generator, and in this city we cannot find the people who repair it. So in 5 why questions, chances are that does not matter how much the situation is complex, you get the root cause of the problem with the 5 why. Maybe sometimes you get it after asking second why, maybe sometimes you get the right answer after asking the third why. The third thing is decision tree. It also helps us in thinking tools. You can create different nodes, there are different softwares available. So asking right questions. What is the evidence? Are assumptions valid? What are alternatives? Critical thinking in academics, we can do research analysis, essay writing, case evaluation. Critical thinking in professional life, strategic decisions, risk assessment, judgmental things. And exams in students can answer the exam, assignments, group discussion. Professionals can do the business strategy, policy making, and diagnostics of the problem. Critical thinking in age of AI extremely important. Fake news detection, if you are critical thinking, you detect the fake news, data driven decisions you can make, and AI supported analysis you can make. To develop critical thinking, questions the assumptions, practice reflection, seek diverse views. And barriers to critical thinking are emotional thinking, time pressure, overconfidence. You need to overcome these barriers. Common mistakes people make while doing critical thinking: jumping to conclusion, ignoring the evidence, and group thinking often leads to less critical thinking. Key takeaways: critical thinking is a learnable skill, practice improve the judgment, essential for the leaders. So answer me what you got from this session. Can critical thinking be taught? Reply me if you think. How does bias affect the decision? Thank you so much.